Hello, viewers, and welcome to yet another exciting episode of the SRHR podcast, proudly brought to you by Say What and supported by Amplify Change. My beautiful name is Panashish Batamoto, also known as the Dynamite. And guys, I always tell you this, I don't know how much I need to explain to you that it's always a great time when I get to be on your screens. And as usual, I do not write solo. I always have people with me that will help me to unpack the topic or the notion that we'll be discussing. And today we're going to be talking about rights without exception, SRHR for everyone. So we are leaving no stone unturned, and we are talking more about inclusion and making sure that every young person, everyone is included when we talk about sexual reproductive health rights. So with me here are think tanks, brilliant minds, awesome minds that are going to be helping me unpack this notion. Welcome to the SRHR podcast.
Hello.
Thank you.
All right. So I want you to introduce yourselves. That is your name, where you're coming from, what you do. And let me know one thing that makes your heart race, one thing that you love or that makes you feel so good. So I'm going to start with you. I'm going to start with you.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Felicia Mangwende, and I'm from Regional Network of Children and Young People Trust. So we definitely work with children and young people from the ages of 10 to 24 years. So we have 3 programming areas. The first one, which is sexual reproductive health and rights. We also are into girls and young women's empowerment, and our last pillar is child and youth participation. So what makes me proud or what makes me stand out is the way I stand out when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to activism, especially when it's concerning girls and young women and the communities that we work with. And also the fact that I'm raising 2 handsome boys who are going to be respectful of women. That's what I can say. Thank you.
All right. On the last episode, we're talking about women in mining industries, and she mentioned a very, interesting point when she said that they often prefer light-skinned women. And when I'm looking at you, I was just started thinking about the mines, and I'm like, this one will stand a chance in the mine. In the mines, I'm just pulling your legs. And also tell us your name, what you do, what you're well known for, what makes your heart go bum, bum, bum.
Okay, my name is Queen B. Chiera Meki, and I'm coming from Trans and Intersex Rising Zimbabwe. I'm representing the transgender community and intersex community in their diversity. So our area of work is we have about 7 pillars, where we're looking at religion and cultural, information and education, the livelihood. We're looking at information, giving information and education to the communities, and also research. And the most important part is where we give that moment of parents and friends being supportive to their children. So, what makes me pump up, I think it's my community being in that enabling environment where we get to express ourselves and understand ourselves more.
Okay, so which one am I going to use? Queen B or Chiera? Which one do you like the most?
I think go for Chiera.
I don't want Chiera.
You want Queen B.
You know, there's connotations that are associated with the name Chiera. Why do you like it?
That's my totem. So for me, for people to be able, because in Shona the pronoun is not that. So for people to just call me she rather than calling me she, as they having confusion, am I a man or a woman? It's easier for them to say Chiera. It's topical, you just said she. So when you say Chiera, you already said she. So it is another way of making my advice,
I love the queen, Okay. Yeah, we rule the kingdom.
There are now 2 men of them.
All right, getting into why we are here, why we're having this podcast today. Remember, we are saying that rights without exclusion, SRHR rights for everyone. So I'm going to start with you, right? Probably just tell us what stands out for you in the SRH space, considering that we've been doing advocacy for a very long time and we're still ongoing with advocacy work. What really stands out for you? What was probably the change that you wanted to see that you've actually realized now?
Oh, interesting. We have quite a number of things that we have seen coming into our success. I'll first start with, I think our organization was one of the organizations that was rallying behind pushing for criminalization of child marriages. And I'm happy to say and acknowledge the government of Zimbabwe for ensuring we criminalize child marriages. And also, I'm sure you are very aware of the age of consent to sex that we recently have in the country. So we are also having those conversations. I think we were one of the organizations that spearheaded when the presidential powers lapsed. I think we had a hot seat accountability forum where we had girls, especially girls and young women from our project areas coming in to demand accountability from the Ministry of Justice, Ministry in every line ministry that was involved to say, how far are you? How have you drafted? Have you drafted something to ensure we
Let's
are protected?
see what you have.
Yes, let's see what you have because we need to be protected. Because currently, you know, when the presidential powers lapsed, it meant that girls had no protection whatsoever. And we had seen that court ruling where someone had walked scot-free because there was no current legislation around that. So that was some of the achievements that I'm really proud of. And also, I think in the communities that we are working in, I've seen bylaws being enacted by the traditional leaders that we are working with. Traditional leaders have been really rallying behind supporting sexual reproductive health and rights for the girls and young women that we are working with. And we have seen banning of some of the harmful cultural practices that they used to practice in those communities. So something that is really standing out for us as an organization in this journey so far. Thank you.
Bravo. And I love it when you put young women at the forefront, driving change and pushing for accountability. I'm always supporting my gender. And over to you, Queen B. So how has it been for you? What have you seen that has come to realization in terms of the SRHR sector? And do you think we're actually on the right track? Are we missing something? What do you think can be done better as well?
I think so far there's been a great change and inclusion. You know, the inclusion and diversity issues have been rising up, but for us it has been well because we have also managed to communicate and worked with the Ministry of Health. We managed to have clinics which are also accommodating the key vulnerable population. You know, it has been tough in other years. I will look at it from 2015, the point of view of 2015, where it was tough for a trans person to get into a clinic, getting access to SRHR services or getting even condoms. And it was not only for that, because I think from the key vulnerable population, what we have done as communities in different diversities, what we have done, we have pushed for the ministry to accept. And this is not only benefiting the key vulnerable population as a vulnerable population. Remember, it's also coming to everybody, general population. As much as we are talking about youth and adolescents, they have now access to those services. But when we get into that front, it seems as if we are fighting for our own wars, but it's not only for our own wars. It's a beneficial for everybody. So far, we now have clinics that are giving services to the communities. We have private, we have government, and we now have even manuals that are also giving information on how to treat an intersex person when they come to the health services, how to be able to give access of services to a lesbian lady, how to give, because everybody is looking for sexual reproductive health rights. Unfortunately, in some of the countries, in Zimbabwe, we haven't included the gender affirming particularly, but from the ones that are there, at least the communities are accessing. We still have a hope, gender affirming to be part of it, because it doesn't only benefit trans people or intersex communities only, but it also benefits every woman, every man. And when we talk about makeup, people think that only women do makeup. The moment you brush your teeth and you early in the morning, you're doing makeup on your face. Even a male can do that. But normally we only think about it's a woman who's doing fashion, who's making lipstick, who's making eyebrows. So it's something that people need to also understand. When we talk about gender affirming, we're not talking about only trans people who want to transition. We are not talking about intersex people to get hormones only, but for every woman, because there are imbalanced things that happen in everybody's body. You might not like, maybe this is a male person who doesn't like beard. they may go under that surgery because gender affirming is for that. So it should be accessible. So these are some of the things that we are looking for. We can fight for to have a gender affirming, to be part of sexual reproductive health rights. So I think that's what I'm hoping for. Inclusion and diversity should be very important for the sexual reproductive health.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And personal hygiene is something that a person can just do for themselves without thinking otherwise, or starting to put connotations on everything. It's only in Zimbabwe where you bath and you are asked, where do you want to go? Like, people don't even want you to look nice for yourself. And probably as a follow-up question, and how are you ensuring that the voices of key populations are not just heard, but they are also centered in your advocacy? Not only that, and as you also push for that, what are some of the barriers that you are facing in realizing that?
So far in Zimbabwe, we can't say we're covering the whole nation. We have other organizations. We came up with a coalition, which is Trans Coalition of Zimbabwe, where we have TREAT, which is in Bulawayo, where we have Transmat, which is also working in Harare, where we have TIRZ, which is TS, Trans and Intersex, which is in Manicaland. Why we came together, it was to cover in Zimbabwe, and we also work with the collaboration of other organizations, which might be LGBTI community, because some areas we can't cover them because of restrictions, MOUs, and all that. But what I can say so far, all the voices, we merge them into our advocates, because we want an enabling environment where we are able to express ourselves. Expressing ourselves, it doesn't mean I'm saying my cultural is bad. No, it doesn't mean my religion is bad as well. So it's more about expressing who I am, being able to show the talents that is in me. We talk about the Zimbabwe economy. Zimbabwe economy is run by a lot of people, diversity of people. Some trans people are in those industries, making makeup, bread, everything in the industry. Some of our talented, because they are very much talented, the community that I'm coming from. And these are very talented in many spaces. We have done a lot of things without being bashed. Sometimes if you go on social media, that's when you are being bashed and you are marketing your product. But at the end of the day, you have a lot of people following you up. So to me, this is something that is very important to just say, acceptance of the diversity. It would be very important for us to move.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And remember, we are also talking about the inclusion of young people and in their diversity as well, because we also have young people that are disabled, young people that are probably coming from marginalized areas or underserved areas as well. So it's very important that we include them. So what are some of the barriers that young people are facing in terms of realizing that their SRH needs?
Well, Panashe, our goal, it's a long list when it comes to barriers that young people face, when it comes to realizing their sexual reproductive health and rights. For organizations like ours that are working in rural areas, you would find you have probably one hospital or a clinic. You don't have much more hospitals or health services that are available for the young people. So I'm also looking at geographical barriers alone themselves for a girl to be walking to the nearest health facility for them to access services. So you find girls have to walk for about 10 plus kilometers to access the nearest health facility that they have in that particular community. And it is really a challenge. And for them to be able to have transport costs also covered, we are talking about families that are living below the poverty datum line, families that do not have even resources. So imagine a girl demanding transport money to go to the clinic. She will not be able to get that because that family already has no resources to accommodate that. Then also, even in circumstances where the clinics are closer or the hospitals are closer, young people often face stigma and discrimination, attitudinal barriers as well from the health service providers, because I tell you, health service providers are also people that are living within a particular community. So if a particular community has certain standards, has certain cultural norms, they carry with them to the hospital, and when they are offering services. So you find when we had our research, when we were starting the project, you would find that girls would first question, like, you are here to ask about contraceptive. So you already have started being promiscuous. You already started engaging in sexual
And
activities.
you're talking to someone that looks like your mom, yeah?
Exactly. What do you need that for? And the third scenario was one girl who shared how when she got to the hospital, she saw one of the church members who was as part of the health clinic staff members, and because they go to the church together, when she heard what she was there for, she was reprimanded at church. You know, the term that we use, quiscopa speciamo. So, you know, that confidentiality that young people are supposed to get from the health service provider sometimes is breached because of the kind of context that they are living in. You also find a lack of information generally amongst the young people. Sexuality education has been a taboo in our communities. Many people do not consider. They think if you're coming, you are influencing bad behavior amongst the children. They are not supposed to be hearing such kind of information. So at the end of the day, if someone does not have comprehensive information, what are they going to do? They are going to have a life full of uninformed decisions because they do not what exactly should I follow? What exactly is the right information? Because I tell you, when people are young, they are more interested in listening to their peers. The peers are also not educated. They do not have enough information. So these are some of the barriers that we are seeing in terms of accessing services. Then we also talk about the legal aspect. Zimbabwe, I think we are not there yet in terms of ensuring comprehensive access to services for especially for children. You know, we still have legal barriers to accessing services for children who are below the age of 16. They require parental consent or a guardian to be present when they are accessing those services. And it's really a challenge, I tell you, because some of the issues are confidential to the children themselves. So sometimes it's difficult for them to go with a parent to access those services. So in as much as we want to try and protect the children probably from misbehavior or something like that, you find we have high cases of unsafe abortions because I can't go to the clinic with a parent or a guardian. What do we even think of a circumstance where the parent or the guardian is the one who's abusing the child? So probably they're raping the child. She needs to go and access services. That's the parent or the guardian that is needed for them to access that particular service. So it's really difficult, it's really challenging. I think when we started the project, we also realized there was a 15-year-old girl who was pregnant, and she stayed with her with her sekuru. So it was highlighted that the sekuru was the one who raped her. And you know, the issue was going in circles and circles in terms of achieving the justice that she needed. So tell me of the circumstances of that girl. How is she going to access services when the when the security is needed for her for him to consent to her accessing that kind of services? So we have too many barriers that we need to constantly working on as CSOs fighting to ensure that young people have comprehensive access to services in the communities that we are working with. It's still a long road to go. That's what I can say.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was so profound and touching as well. And, you know, when we started having this conversation, you mentioned something about empowering young people. So probably I want to hear from your own side. How can we address these barriers through peer-led initiatives?
So this is something that we've been trying to do as an organization, to say, for example, you see the barriers that they get when they go to the clinics and to the hospital. So we said, how best can we ensure health service providers conform? Because I tell you, when they receive the training, they are supposed to be confidential in their work. They're supposed to give age-appropriate information to whoever is coming to access the services. So we said it's also important to also sit down with health service service providers and capacitate them and give those refresher trainings to them to help them understand that you need to deliver adolescent-friendly services to children, to girls specifically, so that they are not afraid to come and access those services. And what we have tried to do is also to collaborate and ensure we are working with community health workers that are within the communities to ensure they are also friendly when it comes to, and also offering adolescent-friendly services to the girls themselves. Then we're also trying to establish safe spaces where girls come and sit together and discuss. We call them SRHR hub centers. So these hub centers are equipped with lots of information that they get to read. They are also equipped with TVs that they get to see some information relating to their SRHR. And we also have field coordinators who are peers to them, who can interact with them on a peer-to-peer level, and also giving them the kind of information that they want to hear. You know, when children are growing up, there's this certain stage that they do not want to hear this kind of information from the parent. They want someone whom they relate with, because this generational gap is also quite bigger with their parents. Things that are tolerated by parents might not be tolerated, So children prefer someone who is of a peer to them that can help them. And we tried to develop a toolkit that can help the field coordinators to interact with the girls. And we also said, because of the long distance, the geographical barriers, we said, how best can we address them? So we collaborate with health service providers to ensure they bring services closer to the girls. And we try to come up with an initiative, and we have a mobile bicycle SRHR hub. So this mobile bicycle SRHR hub is driven by the health service providers as well as the girls, giving services to other girls so that they do not complain about transport costs. They do not complain about, getting to leave their work. So we are trying to ensure that no one is left behind in terms of ensuring access to those services. So that is some of the peer-to-peer initiatives that we've been trying to ensure we have. And I tell you, because of that kind of support, we then set up a referral pathway that is quite easier. And you see, and the health service providers now, when they receive a child coming from that specific referral pathway, they then tend now to behave in a way that is adolescent friendly for the girls themselves, and they are no longer afraid to access services at these clinics and hospitals. That's what we have been trying to do.
Okay. And, I think basically we need youthful faces at those centers, because if I were to see someone that looks like my mom there, believe me, I'm not even attempting to say what I want to say. And to you, Queen Bee, as you're driving change, I love the work that you are doing, because you're actually raising awareness, you're actually driving change, especially in Zimbabwe. I understand that you might be facing a lot of resistance. You mentioned something about social media resistance. It's not only in social media, but even in the communities that we are in. You enter a room and everyone is looking at you and you're like, Am I different from anybody else who's here? So tell me, as you're driving change, what are you doing to ensure that, this resistance and other things that are happening in the communities do not affect you or affect the people that you're trying to help access SRH services?
So far, maybe I will start from the policy, lobbying for the policy changes. We have been doing that, and we have been... we have cases that have come from different parts of the country, and we are documenting them, and we are working with also the other media journalists that we engaged. We have a challenge of reporting about the rape.
Okay.
How does this person goes to reporting? As a trans woman, I'm representing as a trans woman. I get to the police station. I want to report what has happened. And there's something that was said by my colleague about the gatekeepers who are well known in a village. This is where some of our community members are being affected. For trans men, there are issues of what they call corrective rape. If a trans man, if I'm saying a trans man, this person has been born as a female, but representing as a male, saying that I am a male, I'm not a female. Sometimes our relatives, they caucus, they do those things where they lock you in the room with somebody to force you to have sex so that you could feel like you are a woman. All this happens
That's
to the community.
disgusting.
Yes. All these rape cases are never filed to the police because when you get there, you're started, there's a stigma discrimination. You understand? They look at you and say, "Ah, but you're a woman." And if it's a gatekeeper, it's protected. It's a businessman who just like to use you. So at the end of the day, the trans community and intersex community and the lesbian, they are really affected and they don't have anywhere to report to. But with this work that we have started up, with the clinics that we've been working with, we've been doing circuit sessions, we've been doing dialogue. We have asked them to also be participating in our programs where we gather communities and they air out their views. With the time when we were doing 16 days, when we were trying to engage different parents, we engaged health service providers, we engaged policymakers for them to understand where we are coming from. We are few, but it seems as if we are too many. And you know, by how discriminatory it is when you are in the room or whenever you are wherever. And the challenge is that we are more visible. No matter if you try to be not visible, I'll be very visible. So it's one thing that you will be like, this is a drama queen.
Exactly.
This is a totally something else, you know. So that's the other issue. So looking at that, we are also lobbying for the policy changes, and we did our UPR when we managed to identify some cases, and I think the government also adopted 2 of our requests from the 10 that we had requested. Protection of the intersex children. The hard part is like, we are working with trans and intersex communities, but we are not able to work with those who are under 18 years.
Okay.
So sometimes we are referred these cases by Childline, by other organizations which are working with youth, who are knowing that this child is troubled. These are some of the issues. So when we get them at 20 to 21, they are already affected with HIV, they have been raped, multiply. You know, all those things that are happening, because some of the people who rape the communities are relatives.
And you know, young people, they go out there, even children before they turn 18, below the age of 18, they call probably SAYWHAT on 577 because they need help, they need assistance. Back then at home in their backyard, their parents are telling them, you know what, you're still young, you're this, and they want them to stick to that certain, So it's very important that we also have mechanisms that are put in place to say if a child is feeling otherwise, it's very important that they express themselves and they're given the right attention that suits their needs. And back to you, I love the fact that you're very active in terms of youth participation and in terms of youth advocacy in relation to SRHR. So I'd like for you to probably just explain to us in terms of youth-led organizations. They face so much resistance, probably externally, and they also go through a lot in terms of divisions internally. It's very, it's very difficult to run a youth-led organization. There are always these stories that are rising every now and then. So tell me, how best can they maneuver such situations?
So, when it comes to external or internal conflicts, I think we need to go back to the drawing board. Do we have a common goal? Do we really understand why we are doing what we are doing? Does everyone understand the vision, the mission, the values of the work that you are doing? So that is definitely important for me as the first port of call. Then also realizing that conflict helps you also grow. So we should not also take conflict as something that is bad when it comes to those organizations, because it also helps us, in terms of maybe a way forward in terms of what we are doing. Then when it comes to external threats, what can I really say? I think when an organization is grounded in its principles, I think most circumstances it's really hard to be shaken by by outside winds or things like that. I don't think we really face much external threats when it comes to youth organizations per se. Probably it's a question that I'll hand over to Chihera to explore more, because I know for them they will then face many challenges as compared to organizations like ours.
Okay.
Yes.
And before I go to Queen Bee, what would you like to say as your parting words?
As my parting words, I would like to say I hope we're going to work more and ensure no one is left behind. Because, when it comes to also sexual reproductive health and rights, we are looking also at the divide between the rural and the urban. I hope to realize as Zimbabwe where one day, access to services is not just about, because I'm in an urban setup, I can access all the things that I want. I also want to see the rural Zimbabwe also having that kind of access, because I tell you, things like family planning in rural areas, they are not as it's not a choice. You have to go with what is available at that particular clinic. So I tell you, if Jadel is not right for me, if the pews are not right for me, but because they are the ones that are available at that particular clinic, I'm going to go for that, because I don't have resources to travel long distances to urban areas and access such. So I'm seeing a world also, Zimbabwe, where adolescent-friendly services are also offered, where girls are not afraid to get into a hospital, to get into a clinic, demanding and seeking their services. Also looking at Zimbabwe, where we reached that stage where when it comes to budget allocations towards health is meeting the Abuja Declaration. Not only that, but seeing specific budget lines that are related to SRHR truly visible within the budget. And when we're talking about the budget, also I'm also looking at timely disbursement of funds. I'll give you an example of, we have sanitary ware provisions in the national budget, but the time that is disbursed, it's no longer buying the same amount of sanitary ware that we wanted to distribute across the communities. So that at the end of the day, some communities will be asking you, where are the free sanitary ware? We have never seen such here in Zimbabwe. So it's also about that. So I'm seeing a community that is inclusive, a community that is, responsive to the needs of everyone, despite their background, despite their age, despite their race, despite their color. That would be my parting words. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And, one very important point will be that when we have these workshops, SRHR workshops, they're usually in the urban areas, and then in the rural areas we have, I think it's recently that we're having more workshops that are happening in the rural areas, but normally it's in the urban areas, and we're seeing the same faces over and over again, getting the same information over and over again. I think that's also a very critical point that we also need to tackle. And to you, Queen Bee, what would you say as your parting words? What change would you like to see? What Zimbabwe are you envisioning?
So I'll start. I think I'll respond from my colleague to say the discrimination and threats and all that. For us, I think for all the trans and intersex communities, at ranks we are not good friends. Hate speech. Sometimes we are beaten. Sometimes there are cases. Some of us sometimes disappear without a trace. These are some of the things that are happening, and sometimes it's a very troublesome when issues like this aren't reported. You go and report, but the case will not be.
You're not even safe in your own country.
Thank you. You're not even safe when you're walking. So we have tried to communicate with the communities to avoid public places in certain times. Even if I try to tone down my dressing, somebody will just notice and, they'll shout out. The moment you are shouted out, with the vendors in Harare, I'll tell you about Harare. It will be very chaos. Everybody will be throwing things at you. You lose your property, it might be phones, it might be whatever. So these are some of the things. In rural areas, that's where we find the rape cases more silently. And when people are being forced to be married at a tender age and at a young age, these are some of the things. But what I'm hoping to see is acceptance and tolerance. And I know it takes time because What I fear mostly is when religious become a hate speech to the community. I wish I had the chance to tell God that I want to come as a woman or come as a man. I wish there was a contract or consent for me to be born just the way it is. But this just happens. Automatically, sometimes you cry before you go out and just ask yourself, why am I going where I'm being pointed or where people are saying a lot of things? You know people, they talk a lot. And I'll give you the example, I'll give you at a funeral place where all the relatives are there. You're being asked, when are you getting married? And to you, it's not making sense. And you're just like, because that's when they start to affect us. Was for the mental wellness for us not to be part of drug users. I think the better future for us to be not pushed to be sex workers. It would be morely to have an enabling environment with policies that can protect anybody, despite your sexual orientation, despite your sexual identities. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Thank you so much, Kinbi. And I'm just thinking, like, if it really affects you as much, how about that young person deep within the communities that do not have access to this information, that does not even know where to seek help and how to express themselves? It's very, very, very important that we spearhead action in the communities and where we are coming from. Thank you so much for coming through. I always want to do this again. Thank you so much for coming through. And yes, viewers, you're watching the Orange Hub podcast, proudly brought to you by Say What and supported by Amplify Change. My beautiful name is Panashish Batamoto, also known as The Dynamite. Until next time, it's goodbye.